part of my computer. So I would like to call the meeting to order. And could we pause to seek guidance, please? All righty. The next is the approval. Is there any additions or deletions for the agenda before we approve it?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a seconder?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. The next is our delegation or presentation by Glenn Bannon, King's Transit Budget Presentation. Would someone like to move for him to come forward, please?
I so move that Glenn Bannon propose.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Glenn, you get to have the hot seat.
I love this.
Oh, that's good. We usually warm it up, just to make it feel comfortable. Go ahead, sir.
Madam Deputy Warden, or councillors, ladies, you know who I am. I'm here today to present to you the 2019-2020 operating and capital budget for Digby, for the King's Transit Authority. Just a few opening words about the authority itself, just to set the framework. Our vision, our mission has changed somewhat this year. We went through a rather extensive exercise to kind of baseline on a couple of issues. Our new mission is, our new vision is people and communities connected through accessible and sustainable public transit. And our mission is to connect the region and enhance livability by providing a sustainable transportation network embraced by our communities and our people. A few facts of interest. Last year, in other words, fiscal year 2018-2019, we provided 36,450 hours of public transit service, and we transported 345,000, just over 345,000 people. On average, for Digby, that amounts to about 91 passenger trips per day. And encouraging news for Digby, we had a 2% increase in ridership over the entire year, which for public transit is actually quite good. Right.
The 91 passengers, is that the number of people using the Weymouth to Cornwallis and each day?
Yes.
Regardless of where they get off?
Yes, and that's average too. So some days there's peaks and valleys and that type of thing. And so far this year, for the month of April anyway, there was a 14.15% increase in ridership in Digby. And for the month of May, there's a 23.61% increase in ridership.
What do you attribute that to? Anything clear or?
Precisely. No, actually, it's kind of interesting, the spike. But when I take a look at the 6 different routes that we have, Digby is almost consistently kind of on the rise. So perhaps it's something you folks are doing from a leadership point of view. To encourage people to ride the public transit system. We provide that service using 13 conventional buses over 6 routes, employing 13 full-time operators, 11 spares across the 3 counties, and we have 2 full-time technicians and 5 office staff. And our organization provides $1.2 million in salaries and wages that are spent in the local economy. Valley businesses provide goods and services necessary to support the fleet, the building, and our operation, and in turn we support Valley businesses by getting workers to the places of employment and customers to the services that they need. Just a recap of our service areas that our staff provides. Obviously, we provide transit operations, in other words, keeping the buses on the road, providing customer service to the people who need it. We maintain our own buses at our depot in New Minas, and that includes the buses from Digby and Annapolis County, and that's basically cradle-to-grave maintenance. We procure the buses, maintain them throughout their service lives, and then dispose of them when they finish their service. We do our own planning and scheduling, which basically means that we plan the service in response to any necessary changes and make sure that the connections are happening on time. General management and accounting of the service itself, and finally we just do our own HR, which basically means that we hire our staff and train them and supervise them to provide the best service we possibly can. A few words on my approach to creating the operating budget for 2019-2020. First of all, we did a very comprehensive review of the revenues, expenses, and I would like to say that the allocations for both revenue and expenses now represent a fair and equitable distribution. And you'll see when you take a look at the operating budget itself that there's some revenues that have been allocated to Digby that never were before, okay? There were some big expenses too, but we did a very comprehensive view of the entire spectrum. Related individual proportions of total ridership have changed slightly over 2018-2019. The core is slightly decreased, and Digby, as I said before, is slightly increased. And as a result, the core share is slightly less and the Digby share is slightly more. Because a vast majority of our revenues are allocated based on ridership, we also allocate the expenses in the same way. Expenses previously excluded or missed are now included. For example, the annual licensing fees for the software platforms that we use to maintain the service and our accounting. And the nature of the expenses have changed over last year to either efficiencies achieved or an evolution of the organization structure. In an example I use of that, we used to have external service provider for our cleaning, both for the building and also washing the buses. That proved to be very expensive and very ineffective. The service provider we had was no good. So we hired an in-house person for less money, and that person can actually provide a wide spectrum of services that's going to save us money in the long run. Some key points for the operating budget for 2019-2020. The total operating budget for Digby is in the order of $313,000. Revenues are projected to increase by 5.92%. The service partner management fees overall, and that's for both the service partners, have increased by 5.04%, mainly due to the allocation exercise that was undertaken. And Digby municipal contributions have increased by 7.13%. A lot of the pressures that we had last year were over maintaining the buses and some weakness in the ridership revenues, not ridership numbers. Expenditures in turn are projected to increase by 5.92%, and the main cost drivers for us, as always, are wages and benefits, fuel, and bus maintenance. Before I go on to talk about the capital budget, I provided a little bit of a spreadsheet with the operating budget. I hadn't intended to go through it line by line. I don't know if you had any questions about any of the items in that spreadsheet.
I had one question about the insurance and the expense sheet. I see it almost double there.
Yes. Our insurance premiums went up significantly this year across the board. Significantly. And when I questioned the insurance provider above it, it's completely related to our claims history for the service.
And there's no other insurance that does this sort of thing that
No.
comparable to
And the other thing that's new on the insurance front that wasn't included as a line item in the past is the insurance for the tanks in Weaver Settlement.
yeah.
How much is that? How much is that?
So for Digby, it's $1,000.
Fine.
And the bus cleaning, I think is included in the budget here. But do you know how our buses get cleaned in Maine?
Yeah, we do.
They are clean and weighted, yes. So the reason why that's broken out is because in the past our accounting clerk simply lumped the bus cleaning fees into wages, and I thought it was better to break them out so you can see precisely what it is that you're paying
So
to
who
clean this bus.
pays for buses? It's the drivers?
Sorry, it's Aaron.
So we're paying for that in our $6,000 fee.
I don't believe so.
It was maintained, like, taking the bus in, I think the thing.
So he charges you,
Yes,
he charges a bill for that over
Yes.
and above?
he charges us, I think it's bi-weekly to clean the buses.
Okay. I understood it.
I thought that was included too, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm finding it useful to actually dissect some of these line items. I mean, I think before there were too few line items in your operating budget, and there wasn't enough granularity in terms of precisely what it is that you're paying for. But Digby has, as I'm told, always paid an additional fee for cleaning the buses, and it's always been lumped into wages, as opposed to broken out as a separate line item.
But when he does the cleaning, if there's anything that needs to be done, fill the windshield wipers, all that
Yes.
crap, he does all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
If there are no other questions about the operating budget, turning to the capital budget, this requires a little bit of an explanation. So, the capital budget for bus replacement is quite aggressive. As I think you've heard me say on a number of different occasions now, we have an aging bus fleet, okay? In Digby's case, you have two buses, right? One of them is quite old and one of them is very good. We've been paying a lot of money to maintain those two buses. And when I look at the other buses that we have, I mean, the Corps has some old buses and some buses that are very good either. So at the end of the day, a large chunk of the operating expense that you're having to pay for each year is associated with maintaining those older buses. And it's been communicated to me that Digby is looking to replace bus 50 this year. And in conversations with Annapolis and our core partners, there's a desire to replace the other two similar buses in the same purchase. Okay, so in my capital budget, you'll see that we are intending to replace this year buses 49, 46, and 50. Okay. There is a rebuild in there for one of the core buses, but that really doesn't have anything to do with Digby. The following year, the Corps is looking to replace all 5 of its New Flyer DLF 40s, and then what I'm proposing the year after that is to replace buses 57 and 58, one which belongs to Digby and the other one which belongs to Annapolis County. In order to do that, of course, we require some funding. The King's Transit Authority gets from the province every year $375,000, okay, under the provincial public transit assistance program. This year, I had applied for an additional $175,000 for this year and next year on top of the 375, and you'll see in the budget figures that I have under the funding section that for fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021, the numbers for that allocation are increased over what you would normally see. So for Digby in particular, for this year and the next year, the amount of money that I would hope to get for Digby is in the order of $44,000. Then the follow-on years, it goes back to $28,500. Right? The Corps kicks in $80,000 each year for capital expenses, and at the end of the day, if you go down to the final section of my capital budget, Digby will open with a balance of $74,000. The projected expenditures, the projected funding that you would get this year is in the order of $325,000. and that includes a municipal contribution of $281,257. And then I'm anticipating that the capital purchase for this year would be in the order of $400,000 for a new bus. Unfortunately, neither Digby nor the Corps nor Annapolis County will be able to benefit from public transit infrastructure funding from the federal government this year because they haven't announced the program. But in follow-on years, we should get some funding from the federal government, and you'll see that for Digby in particular, in fiscal year 2021-2022, it looks like there'll be, or I'm projecting a funding inject of $250,000 for Digby towards the replacement of bus 58. In my notes, you'll see that there are a number of assumptions. One of the assumptions being that the resolution of the due to capital amount that was outlined in our accounting engagement is actually undertaken, and we're looking to do that right now. And in addition to that, there are a number of assumptions there that are around the funding streams that we would get from both provincial and the federal governments. I don't know if that's clear as much or not.
So the extra 175 you applied for, that has been confirmed?
So, in my consultation with the province, the answer I got was, we're not saying yes, we're not saying no.
Yeah.
So
That
that
sounds kind of good.
Pardon?
it hasn't been confirmed.
No, it hasn't been confirmed.
That's semi-positive. That kind of sentence. I'd be optimistic with it.
Any questions?
Right now, we're running our old bus.
Yes.
The old.
Yeah.
The Eldorado.
What's the busiest day of the week? I'm thinking of hopping on the bus for the day, checking it out.
I don't think it matters.
Just a weekday. We all go to work. So, what time does it start in the morning?
7.
You should be waiting at 6. You should be waiting at 6 a.m.
6 a.m. 4, 3. I'll leave 3 in the morning.
Linda?
So for year 3, 21-22, purchase of another 30 foot or 30 foot buses. So that would be used as a spare, or would you, because I'm thinking, would you need a 30-foot bus as a spare? Would you buy like a smaller bus?
The challenge with the smaller bus is what we're trying to get away from right now is maintaining a large number of models of bus in a small fleet. It's challenging for us from a number of different perspectives. First of all, you have to spare for all those buses. Secondly, you've got to maintain operator proficiency. And you've also finally got to maintain mechanic proficiency. And really, in this day and age, if you're looking at a smaller bus, you're looking at possibly a gas bus. We don't have a gas mechanic at this point in time. So,
Any other questions?
How many days in a run of a year would, like, if we bought a new bus, how many days would that be out of service, like for, regular service or possible breakdown, which you shouldn't have too many on a new bus, but any idea how many days would be out of service?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by out of service.
Well, not being used, like, let's say if we buy a new bus and it starts next week, like, how many days during the month of July would it, or August or September? Like, how often would it have to be taken out of service for maintenance?
There are scheduled maintenance routines on the buses, yes.
But how many days a month would that be? Or would they be out of service?
I couldn't say for sure. I can find out though.
No, it would just be like, I have an idea in case we only wanted to buy one bus, and then whenever it was out of service, we'd have to like we do.
Maybe cheaper, you think, in the long term?
Yeah.
But one comes out of operating, the other one comes out of the gas tax.
Yes.
Yeah,
The operating money's a lot dearer than gas tax money.
Now, I don't think, I don't think it would be workable for you to have one bus and rent a bus when the other one's out of service, unless you're talking about from us.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, I see what you mean. The challenge there is our spare ratio wouldn't support that.
Matthew?
Well, and keep in mind, if we bought a new bus and stuff like that, down the road when you have the core, you have some buses that are probably newer than our oldest bus. That probably doesn't have the wear and tear of the kilometers that this area sees for transit. Is it possible we bought a new bus this year, say the core or somebody next year, lets one of their old buses to them go? Is it possible to keep that aside for breakdown maintenance and stuff? I mean, we're looking at a big budget here and trying to decide, like, we're not filling the bus every day, so it's a big question. So in my mind, I'm just looking at ways down the road to help us get over some of these humps in the long term, right? Buying a new bus today is going to be great for 40 years, but we're back to $100,000 maintenance fees at the end of 40 years. Now we're looking at a service that's going to cost us $500,000 a year for 30, 40 people to take the bus.
91 a day.
Or sorry, 91 a day, considering they come back too. It's just wondering if there's something that way down the road to look at for our second bus. I know our old bus isn't going to last forever.
No.
We're doing the best we can with it,
But the cores are no.
but the cores are no better. Right?
No, not really.
Yeah.
They're all the same boat as us.
I mean, it's just that this bus here, I've heard, and I'm the new counselor, so it's been told that it's kind of a all-lemon, so I was kind of thinking that maybe one of those good buses up there may still be good for us as a spare.
Not just
Yeah, I think the challenge is for the longer term, the core, at least if things continue the way that they are, we'll be kind of moving away from the 30-foot buses because, as I've said so many times before, it's better to have a homogeneous fleet, from a number of different perspectives. And there are plenty of times during the day when the core buses are filled to capacity, almost to the point where they can't take any more people. That's part of life in public transit, though. You have two peaks each day. You're getting people to work and you're getting them home, and then another chunk of the day they're running around without anybody on them. But if you want to maintain a public transit service, you've got to be operating during the off-peak periods too.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's my understanding that a 40-foot bus may not be appropriate for the town of Digby in particular. Although there are other areas that it could operate in just because of the tight streets. But I do certainly see what you're getting at.
Oh, it's definitely worrisome. It is shocking when you first start, and you're like, how much do we spend a year? It is. It's hard.
Is there any other questions for them?
If we did decide to order a bus, like we're looking at our capital budget next week. So, and I think the others, we do 5 or 3 at the same time, obviously. But do you know what the turnaround time is? I'm just trying to think, it seems like it was the last time it was quite a while, 12 months.
So it's typically 10 to 12 months, but it all depends on whether or not they've got buses that would be suitable on their line too. I mean, I think with 60 and 61, there was a relatively quick turnaround line because they had 2 buses that would be suitable for our purpose on their assembly line.
It's rough,
That's quicker than that, because any of the advantages of having a new bus won't be applicable this fiscal year, it's 10 months from now.
has Santa.
But, and I hope I don't ruin your confidence by saying this, but, given what appears to be the intention to buy the new bus, I've told the guys to avoid spending anything on bus 50, that isn't absolutely necessary for its safe and reliable operation. So, in other words, they don't need to make it last another 10 years. The bus was actually supposed to go into the body shop to have some extensive corrosion repairs done, but we've
Let it rust.
yeah.
Especially if it's, don't need to keep it pretty. You like cheap over pretty.
Not even pretty.
You like pretty, I like cheap.
No, I mean, it's maintenance.
Of course.
That's what he's talking about, it's not like it's rusty.
Right.
That's what I was trying to tell him.
I'm talking about cosmetics.
Is there any other questions?
Nope, I'm all good.
Well, thank you so much for coming, we really appreciate, our budget, I think, is
Next Monday,
next Monday?
17th, we'll finalize it.
Yes.
Recommend it to the council for the 24th.
Yeah. On the 24th?
Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, have a good drive back.
Thanks.
See you later.
Okay, the next is the minutes of May 13th. Is there any errors or omissions?
I move to approve the minutes of May 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Unfinished business is regulation related to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. Input requested by June 28th.
Oh, yeah.
This was presented to you last month, and just, to let you know that they are looking for any input that you may have by the 20th. If anyone has anything, they can just list it to me. I think the regulations were sent to you.
If anyone has any, make sure they get them to Linda. Okay, the next is the CAO report. Meeting dates and reminders. Remember the 17th is bylaw and policy. 24th will be council. There's none on July the 1st. July the 3rd, there is RCMP advisory. July 15th, there's an audit at 6 p.m., not at 5. Yes, dear?
September 16th is way too long. We have some pressing stuff that I want to talk to you long before months and months from now for bylaw policies. Maybe we can squeeze another one in there somewhere. It's just too long. Even July, let alone August, is pushing it for me. Because, we've got salmon cages, we've got title, we've got a few things going on that we have to talk about.
Linda, what do you think would be a decent date? Because when I'm looking, I think,
Maybe we can slide it before, like on July.
you mean on July the 15th, so
Yeah.
that's all policy then?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
can
my
do that.
birthday. That'll be happy birthday. You look thrilled when you birthday.
I've been here on my birthday, so there's.
No, I don't mind. I'm arguing to have a meeting on my birthday. That's what's wrong with me.
It's up to council.
All right, what we could possibly do is start at 5,
Mhm.
stop at 6, have the audit committee,
Mhm.
and continue so that it's
Use
not
his
too
expense
late.
sheet to feed us.
Pardon me?
Use his expenses to feed us.
I'll bring you some.
Oh, no.
Salt.
No, he's gonna start bringing stuff we don't want.
Like seagull eggs,
Yeah, I can
baby.
do between 5 and 6 on the 5th.
Yeah, so what we'll do, then we will
I think
start.
an hour should be enough to talk
Well,
about
if it
this.
isn't, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying,
Mhm.
we'll have the audit, because the audit's gonna be about 45 minutes probably. And then,
Mhm.
so that everyone knows,
So
Yeah.
bylaw is 5?
no,
Mhm.
yes, sorry, bylaws at 5.
Yeah.
And, we'll talk about the strategic plan. I think that would kind of encapsulate both things, the type of stuff, and I'll write something for both of those, give you lots of time. Peter, what are you talking about? Alright. I'll send you my arguments in there.
August the 12th, July 22nd will be our
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you very much for the picnic.
council meeting, July 29th, there is no meeting. Going fast. August the 12th, there'll be a committee of the whole meeting. Then the next meeting would be September the 9th for committee of the whole, September 16th for bylaw and policy, September 23rd for council, and September 30th, no meeting. Now remember, we're going to go to bylaw and policy of once a month.
Yep.
Okay.
I do like the bylaw and policy once a month, but it sort of figures once a month. I normally, we have time, but I guess I feel like I get a little pressure too from the Niles and stuff. They want me to know, they want to know what's going on.
Now the CAO update, is there any questions for Linda for the CAO update?
Rural internet, any further development on that? Did they come up with any proposals or anything?
Evan actually just sent out an update late Friday, and I haven't reviewed it yet, but once I do, I'll send it out. I know there's a short-term RFP that is going to be called, like for projects that can be done between 6 and 12 months. I'm not sure how much the funding is, but I know, Evan's been in discussions with one of the providers that we've been talking to, who is interested in certain areas within the unit, like within our group, so there may be something that they could do on a small scale. They just want to make sure it is still fiber to the home.
You know, they haven't had any, I asked them a few months ago, have you had any luck on communicating, I think it was with TELUS, to improve the cell service? He said he was going to go down and drive around some people, but I don't remember anything.
I don't know. I know he's been focusing on internet. So.
Well, thanks. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for the CAO?
Like always, what a good CAO report.
Next is the departmental reports. Is there any questions?
One question.
Yes, sir?
John Harvey's report about the FM tower
Mm.
for MDS, this kind of question, is that something we can or cannot do, or?
It depends on where they want to put it. Where they've indicated to us they want to put it, it is too high. It's close to the runway. So we've indicated the height restrictions and where, or Dan Harvey has where it would work. And they don't seem interested in that. They were interested in pretty much where the windsock is. But the height restriction there wouldn't allow them to put up, of course, a tower that high.
Yeah.
So, and he's had no, once he told them that, he's had no communication with them. I think he's indicated in his report for a week and a half or.
Only spot that we put it.
Well, on the airport.
Yes.
I don't know what other places they're looking at. It only affects.
Yeah, that's right.
That was interesting. That was a little something different, I think.
Yeah.
The only question I had on the dangerous and unsightly that was you mentioned, there was nothing coming to council on it. It just, you mentioned two.
There will be something, probably not, like typically if there's a request for demolition, it comes to committee of the whole. I think the timing didn't work, so Alfred may be coming to council instead to get that done, so I think there may be something in June.
I'm
for
doing
demolition of existing
on
homes.
street. Who's that?
Is there any other questions of any other,
No, well, good and obvious. Reviewed. Fire inspection reports, you don't see a lot of those. How often do they have to do those? After major renovation, or maybe
know, it's every so many years, and it's different, like.
I would expect to see a lot more fire reports on our businesses around here.
We probably don't see the towns, we only see ours.
But we did have fire.
We do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So there's just
Yes.
one, there's one in the package that there was one time. Yeah, commercial, basically.
Is there any opportunity to pick up more, dispatching, more opportunities in dispatch? Did they get all the,
That all of them.
they got all of them, did they? Because I knew a couple were looking at other.
Well, the ones, there were some that were real private, two private agencies that were, Narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was way further.
Is there any other?
I see on the dog report, there was a call for a concession from Joey Wagner. Does Scott do down there also?
No, but they work together when they pick up a dog, if, if one can be adopted. But no,
He doesn't go down there and do dog calls?
no, he
They have their
only
own.
does for the town.
I know he did Digby in municipality, but then when I saw Joey Wagner from concession,
Might have been a dog he picked up in
yeah,
that
it might have
area.
been.
I mean, that's
But it
something
doesn't, it
happens.
doesn't say, this is Joey Wagner concession, this is straight.
Yeah, so he might have picked one up in our area
Yeah.
and switched
Okay.
to, no, he doesn't, to answer your question, he doesn't do
No.
dog control in that area,
Yeah.
in Clare.
He's like full question.
Yeah.
He's busier all the time, it seems to me, the dog catcher.
I'm busy.
Definitely busier this year than last.
Any other questions on any of the other reports?
No, looking good.
I see Jonathan looks like he's been up straight on that stuff.
It's the time of year. Yeah.
On saying that, we will move on. There's no dangerous and unsightly, so we will go to business items, the Electric City.
For some reason, my content star came back after 2 years. I have no idea why. It's taking garbage can stuff.
Now,
I don't know why, just wasn't some feedback about it.
they have brought forward, they want to erect a symbolic light at the Center National Community. They have received a donation, and what they're asking, if we would consider donating the solar powered street light that would sit on the pole. I guess my question would be, I'd like to know the cost.
Yes,
before I
exactly.
make-
So it's a match.
Would Terry be able to, Terry did that pretty quick, I think.
We'll
Well, he'd have to call, of course, to find out from them what they're looking at.
I think it's a great idea, and I definitely support it if it's, top cost is reasonable.
I was talking to Stacy, he said the pole had been donated by Nova Scotia Power, and then they were gonna also later approach Nova Scotia Power about installing it. I'm gonna have it installed.
Yeah, wait a little bit.
Yeah, just kind of, a little bit at a time, so,
Mhm.
they were looking for us for the light, and if Nova Scotia will install the power, then,
I think it looks like I think it's a great idea, I know that.
the solar light would be the idea.
So the other part of it is we have agreed to fund them $5,000 if they get their funding.
Mhm.
And I had a conversation with Al Terry, and I think he seems really optimistic.
yeah.
They haven't heard one
No,
from the other.
they was,
Matthew?
There could be, possibility the donate, or could the light purchase be taken with, then we have Terry
Marketing.
has a budget for repairs and stuff like that for other things.
That's budgeting repairs for others. This would be a grant.
Okay. Sometimes we can get away with putting a big sign that says, given to you by the large acts and kindness of municipality district Digby and Palmer.
So, could we have that back for our, actually our council meeting?
Yes.
Please, if possible. Yep. And the next is the letter of support and commitment for $20,000 for the comfort station.
The council's already approved the
Yeah.
funding, so
Yeah.
they're doing an application to a co-op for the majority of the funding, we just need letters of support to go along with the application. And now I've written the letter, and
This is the letter of support right here.
that's the letter I wrote.
I so move that, we authorize Linda Frazier to send the letter of support as presented.
There's a second.
That was my fault.
Yeah.
Any discussion on that letter?
Looks good. Have the province is all good for that?
I think they're going straight to a co-op.
All of them straight to the color. Okay. Wasn't the province that was doing this?
I thought at first it was when we made it originally, but I think now
If
they're,
this doesn't get approved, then there's no.
no, our funding was contingent on
Yeah,
their giving
that's
their
what I want to tell you. Yeah.
And it's,
All that
we
contingent
put in
on
less than what they had requested.
helping
each
I
other.
don't know if that, they had to ask for more money
Yeah.
in their request.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. There is no correspondence or information items. There is no in camera. So could we have adjournment, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Yeah.
Motion carried. Drive carefully.
Yeah.